What's going on, you guys? So in the last video you've seen we finally got the engine fully assembled, and now it's time. We got to get this thing back in the car. So there are a couple changes I actually need to make to this engine before it can go in. And that change I need to make is primarily right here with the pilot bearing. So the crankshaft that's in here right now is an LS3 crank, so it has an LS3 pilot bearing in it. Now the input shaft in the T56 will not fit in that pilot bearing. And I've seen it before where guys will fight to get their transmission in when making a crank change and not realize that the pilot bearings are completely different. So I got to get this off of here first, set it on the ground, knock this pilot bearing out, put this one in, put the clutch, flywheel, all that stuff on it, bolt the trans up, get this thing stuffed into the car. So let's get into it. Alright, so when it comes to removing bearing like this, what I like to do is take a grease gun, and I'll actually go in here and fill the back of the bearing with grease, get all the air out of it, and you can see it's like filled all the way to the edge of the bearing right there. And then I will take a punch or something, wrap it in tape if I need to tighten up the clearance between the bearing a little bit, and then fit that in there. And then the hydraulic pressure from the grease, when you tap this in, will actually draw the bearing out. You got to do it little by little, because as you're going in with this, you're running out of room behind that bearing to put the punch in. And when you pull it out, you're going to let air in. So you're going to tap it out a little, pull your punch back out, top that back off with the grease, repeat the step. And there's your bearing. Simple as that. Now, just gotta clean all this goop out of here. Alright, so I'm in the middle of editing this video right now, and I figured I'd cut in here before everybody loses their goddamn minds. Now, first of all, is this a good way to remove a pilot bearing? Well, depending on your situation, if you don't have the tool available to you, yeah, it works fine. Works off of hydraulic pressure, pushing the bearing out. Second of all, if you're reckless and you're actually like hammering your punch into the back of the crank, you can hit that freeze plug and like knock it sideways and kind of mess it up. But as long as you're careful and know what you're doing, you're not gonna have an issue with it. I've removed bearings like this pretty much every time on every LS engine I've ever done, and I have had zero issues with doing it this way. And then somebody else is probably gonna comment, why don't you just use bread? Bread doesn't make as much of a mess. Well, that's cool. I don't keep bread in my toolbox. I do have a grease gun and a lot of tubes of grease though. So yeah, grease is far easier to just get a hold of. And I mean, if you're concerned about cleanup, then you probably shouldn't be working on cars, because there's a lot of cleanup involved on working on cars regardless. And if you can't take 30 seconds to spray a little brake clean and wipe out the inside of a crankshaft, then you probably shouldn't be working on anything to begin with. And lastly, it's like, why don't you just get the right tool? The right tools are super cheap. Yeah, but the point was to show somebody how you can do it if you don't have the tool. Not everybody just has a bearing puller laying around. Mine's in my toolbox at work. I didn't have it at home. I'm not going to run out to the store, go grab another bearing puller to do something that is going to save me no time and money. So, yeah. Anyways. Okay, so when it comes to putting the clutch on, I do have a trick that I like to do. Sometimes getting the clutch discs aligned on these twin disc setups can be kind of a pain, especially when using one of those like cheap plastic clutch alignment tools. So what I have here, I actually have an input shaft out of another T56 transmission, and an input shaft honestly makes the best clutch alignment tool you can get. They line up pretty much perfect every single time, and the tolerances are super tight, so it makes installing the transmission a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and align it with the input shaft here. Once I get this lined up in here, I'm going to go through and start tightening them up. I want to make sure it's still loose and easy to get in and out as I'm going through and tightening these down, because if you just stick it in there and torque it down, it might be offset a little bit and then get wedged in place. So it's always a good idea to kind of slowly tighten it up and make sure you can still get this in and out while you're doing it. So that should make getting the transmission installed a lot easier. Alright, so now the motor's back in the car, all bolted up. We got the trans bolted back in. So now what we got to do, we got to get the intake manifold set back on this thing, route all the wiring, plumb the fuel lines, plumb the coolant lines, oil lines, all that stuff. So I'm going to try and get everything done up here first. So in the engine bay, get all the harnesses connected up, route the spark plug wires, cam sensor, crank sensor, basically anything I can do in the engine bay now, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I got to throw it back up in the air. I'm going to throw the starter in, drive shaft, shifter, sway bar, exhaust, headers. Actually, I still got to build exhaust turbo kit, so I'm kind of debating if I want to do that. I'll probably just throw the headers on it for now. Maybe I'll see if the new turbo will bolt up. I don't think it will because it's a little bit smaller dimensionally, so I doubt the new turbo is going to bolt right on. We do plan on building a new turbo kit anyway, so I'm not really concerned about that. But I do want to get this thing fired up, so I'm going to get it as together as I can get it next, just so I can get to the point where we can add oil, prime the fuel system, and see if this thing will fire. So this is definitely one downside to having no flex in your turbo kit. When you take it apart, you make it out of this regular stainless tubing. It likes to move around a bit, and that's it. I don't think that's going back together. So it's a good thing I was planning on building a new turbo kit anyways, because this thing's seen some heat cycles and seen better days. Alright, so I think that's going to be the end of it for this video. I'm going to call it a day right here. I still got a lot of stuff I got to get done this weekend, and trying to, you know, record all this and work on it all at the same time. It takes a long time to do. And it might look like we're actually really close to getting this thing done, but there is quite a lot of stuff I still got to put back together. In order to finish up the oil system, I got to get the front of the chassis back on the car. That way I can mount the oil cooler, route the oil cooler lines. I have to prime the oiling system for it. Figure out if I'm even going to try and get these headers to go back together at all. I doubt it. So if I can't do that, which means I can't put the turbo on right away, I'm probably going to take the spare set of headers I have that are unmodified, that just face straight forward, and I'm probably going to go ahead and toss those on. That way I don't have to worry about like the exhaust blowing into the motor, because with these manifolds, the way they're like twisted and routed, they actually come in towards the engine. I don't feel like blowing exhaust like right on the front cover of the motor, so probably gonna swap headers over. Sway bar's got to go back on. I have to find a hose clamp for that one that I can't find, that went missing, so I'm gonna have to get that taken care of. And I still gotta go get oil. I don't even have oil to put in this thing right now, so probably next video this thing will be getting done and hopefully fired up. And that just all depends on how soon I have to move this thing out of here and get the rest of my equipment and everything packed up out of here too. So but anyways, yeah, it's going back together pretty smooth. No major issues, everything goes together, nuts and bolts, man. Came apart, goes back together. So anyways, that's going to be it for this one. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, follow the rest of the build along, and until the next one, I'll catch you guys later.